Hey everyone, this is Car Ray Rob.
Where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob. And we want to welcome you to our podcast, Say Hello to My Little Film.
Hey there, it'll be just a little while till Ray and Rob spit their spittle. Come on, check out of the hospital. So grab some of your best peanut brittle. This will be a darn good transmittal. And say hello to my little film.
All right, guys, Rob and I are back for Season 2, Episode 2 of Say Hello to My Little Film, where we like to do our fresh perspective on a retrospective review.
That's right, Ray. You will be recommending a movie that you love to me to see if I feel the same way you do.
Yes, and I really hope that you do. I have kind of a little bit of a theme for the movie I picked today.
Themes are fun.
Yes, they are. So you remember the movie that I presented to you, my first movie I ever presented to you with this podcast last year?
I do. What We Do in the Shadows.
Yes, which I love, and you liked it too?
I did, and everybody should listen to that episode if you haven't.
Absolutely. So that my theme is centered around that. That's what I want to say right now.
Well, you know I do love Taika. So
Yes.
I got to know. I'm really excited. What do you got?
What do you got? What do you got? What do you got?
All right, Rob. So what I got is Taika Waititi's follow-up to What We Do in the Shadows. That's how I want to start this season.
Okay.
And this follow-up to What We Do in the Shadows was 2016, Hunt for the Wilderpeople.
Wilder people?
Yes.
You know,
they're
I do
wild.
think I have. Okay, I have heard of
Sam
this.
Neill,
Yeah.
Which
and
we coming back. I had recommended a movie last year to him,
Neill's
Rams.
coming back. That's awesome. And it's
Yep.
got that kid, the kid from Deadpool in it,
Deadpool
right?
2,
Yeah.
Julian Dennison.
Okay.
He's like a scene stealer in Deadpool 2. He carries a lot of the like heavy work in this movie. He's great
Okay.
in this movie too. It's really fun. Basically what happens is a national manhunt is ordered for this rebellious kid and his foster uncle, and who go missing in the New Zealand bush.
They're the Wilder people.
They are the Wilder people, I guess. So, it's one of those great coming of age movies for the
Okay.
kid, and just this, old crotchety man, this kid who thinks he's a rapper, who's not really a rapper, like how they can come together.
Is he just the same kid from Deadpool?
This movie was first, so
okay,
it's
so
the
is
Deadpool
Deadpool
movie.
just the kid?
Yeah.
Is he just that?
If you make that connection, that's Deadpool's fault, not this movie's
Okay,
fault.
fair
Don't judge
enough.
it like that.
Okay, I will.
But I really want you to see this movie. I think you're gonna like it because we're just such big fans of Taika.
Well, yeah. I mean, it is. Okay, I have heard of this movie, but it is a blind spot. I have not seen this movie. I love Sam Neill. Obviously, I loved him in Rams, but I love him in a lot of things.
Right.
And I really do enjoy that kid. Like, I
Yeah,
think
he's funny.
He is really funny. So, and you're right. Like, Taika is the big seller here. So
Yeah.
I'm super
And
pumped.
this
yeah.
is Taika being Taika. He's right in his lane here.
Right.
This is great.
This is like, early Taika too.
Yes.
Just like What We Do in the Shadows. So I mean, I
Yeah.
think it's like kind of that raw Taika, which is I'm kind of excited about.
Yeah, he doesn't go too crazy because he doesn't have the freedom yet to go too crazy. So he's like just
sure.
hemmed in enough where I think it's like almost him at his best. Where maybe like Thor 4, he had too much freedom, got too
I
crazy, and
definitely get
the
behind
vision got
that,
too
right.
big. And this is a little tighter. It's a
Okay.
smaller deal, and
Okay.
everything. I think it really works. I really want you to check it out.
Well, I'm ready to go. We should definitely do this.
All right, so let's go do it.
Yep.
Let's pause this podcast for a second. We'll go check this movie out.
Definitely.
And then we're going to recommend everybody listening to do the same. If
Yep.
you have not checked out Hunt for the Wilderpeople, pause the podcast, go listen to it, and come back when you're done.
Definitely. We'll be right back with you.
Ray and Rob are currently watching the film. You may be also watching the film. If you're not, then you're listening to me say that Ray and Rob are watching the film. They'll be right back when they're done watching the film.
All right, everyone. We are back from New Zealand. Again, I can't tell you how
I
much
love
I love
going
going to New Zealand. Someday I'm really going to go to New Zealand. It's going to happen.
I don't believe that, but if you do, can you go to a Hobbiton and stay in a little hobbit hole?
I'm definitely going to do the Lord of the Rings little tour thing that you can do.
Amazing.
That's definitely going to happen. But before we get into this movie, Ray, I don't know how to say this.
Uh-huh.
Hunt for the Wilder People? Wilder People? What am I saying here?
I don't know. I guess it depends if you say a wildebeest.
You said Wilder People, and now I
Yes.
feel grossly
Misled.
misled.
Yeah,
'cause
I think
they
it's-
were saying Wilder People. I'm
yeah, but
pretty
maybe that's
sure.
your Australian accents, or is it just my American accent? I'm just like,
We're just,
Yeah.
it's the Wilder Beast.
that's called a wildebeest.
Is it?
No, it's a
Oh,
wildebeest.
man.
So yeah, they're the wilder people. Fine, whatever. That doesn't
I
take
knew
away what I feel toward this movie. But going forward, said movie will be referred to as Hunt for the Wilder People.
Wilder People.
So let's refer to the movie a little bit. So I guess we usually start with a question. So I don't like one thing I really like about this movie is it's not overly complex. It's a
No.
nice start to the season, I think. But what the thing that it tackles that I think would be the question that I want to ask you a profound question, maybe even more profound than the movie,
Mhm.
is this what this movie challenges you with is the family you choose stronger than the family you're given,
Sure.
or however you want to think about that. And so maybe we can think about that as we just delve into this relationship between Ricky and Heck.
Definitely.
Heck.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great question. I think as someone who's moved around a lot, and had to, kind of make different friends along the way, living far away from blood relatives and things like that. Yeah, I mean, I think you are kind of put in those situations where you start adopting people along the way.
Sure.
And I think this movie, especially for the lead character Ricky, who was in the foster system, it's kind of forced to kind of go that route. So yeah.
Ricky's a delight, though, I think. For
Well,
most
yeah,
of
and
this movie.
he's
Julian
right off the
Dennison is
bat.
awesome.
Right off the bat, he's a delight. He kind of gets out of the car, and I'm like, man, this is just Deadpool 2 all over again, because he just looks like the same kid.
Well, he is the same kid.
He is the same kid, and he's just, but he's got all that attitude, and he doesn't even say a word, which I think is pretty great.
Yeah.
Like, you can kind of see just the kind of disdain for his situation, like as he gets out of the car, and then Bella, the aunt, as they refer to her, is trying so hard to like kind of welcome him and all of that. And side note, the lady Paula from like Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, Rachel House.
Yeah, but that was great.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, when I
She's
saw her, I'm like,
awesome.
oh man, this is awesome.
Yeah, she is hilarious.
She's so funny.
And she kind of plays a very similar role to what she plays in like Thor, where she's just like this like assistant-y type character.
Definitely.
Really short. She's great. I also she's in Moana. She plays the grandmother, and like her voice note is almost more iconic to me from Moana. But
I've never seen
I
Moana,
I just love her, like the pace that she speaks at.
Mhm.
It just always makes me laugh.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Her comedic, like dry comedic timing is so good.
Yeah. Very dry. I like when she's describing. I didn't write down like exactly how she describes, but when she's saying why Julian's a bad kid, they're like, he kicks,
Right.
he spits,
spits.
he steals stuff, he runs.
Does graffiti.
Yeah.
Like things
Just-
like that. Yeah.
It's like some of it's not that bad, but
Yeah.
but yeah, and that's one thing I will say about Ricky is like they try to set him up like this really bad kid. You don't really ever see it. You get told
that's
it
true.
because
Yeah.
I think he's got a heart of gold.
Yeah. I mean, and again, I think there's a lot of heavy lifting just that comes with his situation.
Yeah.
So when you hear about a kid, who's in foster care and, he's getting into trouble, it's almost like you in movies, it's almost like a cliche,
Right.
because it's almost like expected. You see that in so many shows and movies and things like that. So I think, in a movie like this, they're using that as a reference point for people so they can just buy in immediately, almost to the archetype more than
Right.
anything else.
Yeah, because I think you automatically give him a break because you blame the system more than you blame him for a lot of his issues.
Definitely.
So it's easier to overcome that as a character.
Right. And then you see Heck. Sam Neill with the boar on his back.
Yeah,
Just a great intro.
he's giving-
Like him coming
He's
over
giving
the
that
horizon.
pig a piggyback.
I don't know who that guy is,
Yeah, I
but
don't
man,
either.
he is fantastic.
Yeah, usually
And
you can recognize a lot of characters in Taika's movies, but I don't remember seeing that actor again.
Well, no, and okay, so there's a couple actors in this movie, a couple performances, actors' performances where I just feel like it's Korg, and he's definitely one of them. Where I'm like, is this where Taika got Korg
that just
from?
or is New Zealand people Korg? Right. Like, is that just that?
Man,
I'm not sure.
That's racist. I'm pretty sure. God, Ray.
Well, it's a rock, so I don't know. But yeah, so
all rocks look alike. Oh man.
Have you ever seen a female Korg? I don't know.
I mean, no, I don't think I have.
It's mostly the beards that throw people off.
They don't think they're all Korg women.
Yeah. Okay, we're kind of combining Marvel and Lord of the Rings, but we're allowed to combine Lord of the Rings. That's mentioned directly in this movie at one point. I love that little scene where they're, eventually we'll get to it, but they're hiding and Ricky is like mouthing.
Oh, and he's because they're hiding, and it's like the Lord. He's like doing the motion with his finger.
Like, and Heck's like, I do not know what you were saying. He's like, I was telling you, it was like Lord of the Rings.
It's like Lord of the Rings.
And I'm like, what? In this moment, you might be captured and sent to jail. And that's what you're thinking, but it just kind of shows you the innocence of childhood. But circling back, I do think the movie. I also really love how the movie's broken up into chapters, and we've seen that before in movies. But I love how the chapters are named. I think that's a little different because it gives you a little bit of foreshadowing about like what's to come. In some ways good, some ways bad. Like one of the chapters is called War, and you're like, oh, okay, let's see what this is.
Right. Yeah.
But I do think so. In this early, this early chapter where, the Ricky and Bella aunt relationship is built. I think it's cool. It's done in a really efficient way.
Definitely.
And I think it gets you back on Ricky's side. He feels loved and safe, and you're like, okay, Ricky is in a good spot, and the movie is starting off well.
Yeah, and I think that's. I mean, I will go on a limb and say I think for the next, for the second and the third act to work, he needed to nail the first act.
Yeah. And
Bella was the key to that. Like he had to nail not only Bella for Ricky, but also Bella for Hector. Yeah. And I think, Bella is very clearly, as I said earlier, into having Ricky there, and she's going out of her way to make him feel comfortable. The hot water bottle is like such a great visual of that. Like it's a thing that you can tell that Ricky really appreciates.
Like he's never been given a gift before is what it comes across as.
Well, not only just that, but it's like a sign of someone who cares. It's a warmth.
Right.
Warmth is not something that he's probably been, afforded much in his situation. So it's interesting. It was a smart, I would say, visual touchstone for Taika to use to kind of get that across.
And also because it's not intrinsically comfortable, like a stuffed animal. So the fact that he loves holding it so much kind of just shows you. I just think it shows that it's a little more important to him than. Yeah, obviously what somebody else would think of it if they looked at it.
But in that same scene though, when he goes in the room and she shows him his room or whatever, I love how she just kind of like nonchalant says, "A knife, to kill monsters, in the night." It's just like that was just I don't know that cracked me up. I died laughing.
No, it's great. He gets the hot water bottle and the knife,
to kill monsters in the night.
We are on the we are in the bush,
right?
All right, and no jokes we're gonna say bush a lot. Just let's grow up.
Just get out of here. Just get it out. Just get it out now.
Ricky got it out once, and then that was it. So, but I do like of course Ricky has to run away because he's in a new environment. Despite it seems comfy, he's got to run away, but he only gets 200 feet. Yeah. So she finds
meters.
Meters.
Jeez,
away.
American.
Yeah, he gets them back, and then she teases him about it a little, which is kind of cute. So I think that again, that's starting that relationship. She's like, "Oh, did you run away again?" He's like, "Yeah, but I forgot something, so I came back."
Right. I love when he came back the first time. He's like, "Oh man, I got poop on my kicks."
Yeah. I don't know if it's just the accent. Like sometimes I hate accents. I hate fake accents in movies, but I love real ones.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, it's clearly his real accent.
Yeah, his stuff just comes across really well. So, yeah. But yeah.
And the other half of it, besides just selling Ricky or Bella's love of Ricky, and like I said, Bella's love for Hector, but also the dynamic between Hector and Ricky, because I think there's a lot of similarities between the two characters that I kind of gather, especially in that first act, where it's like they both are kind of like these lone wolves.
Yeah.
And you can tell, like, you don't know much about Hector's backstory so much, but you get the vibe that like he's come from a rough place.
Yeah, they I think at one point Bella refers to him as a drifter.
Right.
But
right.
nothing more than that in the first act. And so like you said, they're two versions of a
They're
loner. They're not
kindred
the same
spirits.
loner. Exactly. They're
Right.
kindred spirits. They're versions of the same guy. And Hector's not like disapproving of Ricky being there, but he's very neutral to it. Like
Yeah.
he's not like really moved one way or the other. It's almost like this was Bella's idea, and what Bella says kind of goes.
Right, but he just doesn't want to necessarily be a part of it. He's like, leave me alone. I can tell you what you can do for me. You leave me alone.
Right.
And stuff like that. So, which I mean, you could see, Ricky. I mean, and he does. Ricky kind of just says like, "Cool," and just like walks away. Like he's fine with it. He's fine with not having to have this relationship.
Yeah, if he's got a connection with just Bella, like probably one more connection than he's had in a long time. So that's probably good to him.
Right. Yeah. And then I another interesting device that was used in this first act that does continue on through the whole movie, but I think it's kind of the way they introduced it were the haikus.
Yeah.
So like the poetry that Ricky tells Bella and stuff like that. I thought that was a really good scene. Maggots in the sheep.
Right.
Like it's just like it's but it kind of gives that glimpse into Ricky's life that he's he's gone through these therapy sessions where he's like been given these tools exactly to kind of help with his mental state, and the haikus is one of the things that's kind of stuck with him.
And it says it is kind of a glimpse into his soul at times, and that is cool, and Bella kind of connects to it, and they go hunting together. It's fun. She kills a boar with her bare hands.
Right. I was going to say that scene was crazy gory.
But we do learn that Ricky can shoot.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Ricky can shoot, and Bella can kill a boar with her bare hands and spray blood everywhere.
Like you said, you have to nail this Bella-Ricky dynamic. And so I think in the next scene, it's like Ricky's birthday. And when she sings him like her version of a birthday song, I'm like, this is so cool. And Ricky's like singing along. Yeah. It's like, I'm like, these two are quick friends, and like you said, that dynamic has to happen for what happens next.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, you're right, like because that scene when he walks up and Hector, and the interesting thing about this scene was how Hector was the one with the emotion in this scene. So like Ricky comes up and is seeing it from a distance, but you're seeing Bella dead on the ground and Hector, crying over her. It's again, it's kind of an interesting thing because I think visually it kind of also says that like Ricky is still removed a bit, you know what I mean, from emotion and from like from getting to where he needs to be, but and also that comfort level with
he's separated again, he's by himself again, kind of thing.
Exactly. So it's like kind of having again, you kind of feel like you're getting this life that you want, and then the rug's just pulled out.
Yep.
And he's kind of back to square one.
Yeah. He did get a dog for his birthday.
Oh, that's right. He did get a dog.
We got to mention Tupac real quick. But yeah, and I think, Sam Neill kills that scene. It's really quick. It's, but his moans have pain in them. And, and it's just, your mind automatically starts thinking about what this means for Ricky. And after, Taika appears in the next scene, a little funeral scene.
Where he gets to be the minister. Yeah. Talking about burger ring doors. What's a burger ring? Does anybody know?
A burglar kind of thing?
I thought he said burger.
I know, but maybe I think it's an accent like
maybe.
I don't know. Like
if anybody in the comment section want to tell us what a burger ring is, maybe if you're out of Kiwis out there, please let us know what a burger ring is.
Eventually Heck basically just walks out of the service. But
he's tricky like that. Yeah. Jesus, he's tricky like that.
He's very tricky, very trickster. But then I guess we kind of really learn like Ricky's situation because Paula has sent a note that we learn Hector can't read, and it basically says that they're not going to leave Ricky alone with Hector. Yeah, he was always kind of really supposed to be like there if Bella was there, and so he's like go back into the foster system, which obviously Ricky doesn't want to do, and Ricky essentially thinks he's going to be going to juvie. There isn't any more homes he can get sent to. Right. So he is anti that, not going to do it, not on board.
Right. Well, yeah, and so this is kind of enters the scheming phase for Ricky, where he has to kind of figure out what to do. And this is, it's kind of an interesting element of this movie that I think, kind of even touches back just to our last episode with Down by Law, where, Taika does a really good job of taking, heavy emotional moments and interjecting comedy either into the scene or directly after.
Yeah.
So, where you go from Bella's death to the funeral scene, which is, has that element of comedy. But even, knowing that these two characters are, essentially in pain for losing Bella, they're kind of like the jokes kind of start coming almost immediately.
Right.
So, when Ricky's like, oh, there's plenty of ladies on the internet.
Yeah.
Too soon. Like,
yeah, he's trying to find some.
Right.
He's trying to find some ways he can stay.
Yeah, exactly. Just got to get you another lady.
Right. But he kind of figures out that's not going to work. Hex doesn't really feel like he can do anything about it. And it's kind of just too lazy to do anything about it in some ways. And so Ricky fakes his own death.
Fakes his own death.
He burns himself alive.
Right.
Or a version of himself. A
plate
stuffed
face.
Yeah.
Plate face.
Yeah, he burns it alive. And then he goes off into the bush and he's going to be a wilderman, essentially.
Yeah, Ricky the survivalist.
Yes, exactly.
I don't know if and you really get a sense right away that Ricky's not necessarily made out to be a survivalist.
No, we saw like we said, his first attempt to run away got him 200 meters, and he gets a little bit further this time, but he gets lost or whatever. And still gets found. Heck does go in and
find him, which again is kind of that first sign that Heck does care about him, because if he didn't, he probably would have just let him die in the bush.
I was surprised he didn't think he was burned alive at that.
I mean, it was pretty convincing. It was convincing, but Heck is a professional.
Right.
What, I don't know, but he's a professional something.
Oh, it's a knack.
Well, exactly. He's got the knack. There you go. He knew he didn't burn himself because he's got the knack.
Right.
But the scene where he, speaking of kind of this section where it's kind of like the beginning of the survivalist section, there is a few interesting discoveries. So like you said earlier that at that point where, Heck got the letter, you didn't know he couldn't read, but you do know, but then the scene where he can, or you discover he can't read is kind of interesting, because it's like, he's like, reading is stupid anyway.
Yeah.
And then, Ricky says, only people who can't read say stuff like that.
And then he kind of figures it out.
He's like, oh, you can't read.
And that pisses Heck off. And he breaks his ankle.
Right. So he's not that much of a professional, apparently.
No, he doesn't have a knack for that. But essentially, and this is kind of where the next phase of the movie starts up, is now that Heck has a broken ankle, they're kind of like, they set up camp here for a couple weeks while he's healing up. But since the welfare officers were supposed to be collecting Ricky, they think they're on the lam.
Right.
Probably that Heck stole him.
Yeah.
And, after some, time at camp, and, obviously they're connecting a little bit. We get to, some scenes where, like,
Ricky's
dancing. Heck's feeding him by catching eels somehow. So that you start to see that that relationship being built.
Yeah.
But eventually they learn like they're on the land, because like Heck is now like basically a pervy. They think he's kidnapped Ricky. He must be molesting him or something.
Oh my God! Yeah, when they get to that cabin or whatever, like there's a lot of these places that they just kind of happen upon in this movie. But yeah, when they find like the wanted poster in there, and he's like, Ricky says he's Caucasian. Well, they got that wrong. You're clearly white. You're clearly white, and they think you're Asian.
Yeah.
Like that was
now the whole world thinks I'm a child molester, like, and Asian.
But then like this trio of guys shows the trio of guys, like the hunters that come in to find them.
Yeah.
Like it's interesting too, because they become recurring characters through the rest of the movie. And it's actually kind of an interesting thing for me, because there's that one, which you probably would call it the main guy of the three, who ends up in the fight with Sam Neill, like again, the one who's like, call me a pervert, one more time or whatever, and he calls him a perv, and then they end up attacking him. But I think that guy kind of has an interesting little journey in this movie, because they kind of run into these guys multiple times, and this guy, you could tell, like, is getting more pissed off about the fact that like Sam Neill's getting one over on him,
right?
And so just as a quick aside, like I just think it's interesting to me when you can take a side character like that and give them a little mini arc.
Yeah, exactly.
It's super fun.
Yeah, when you can do that with side characters, it just makes the whole movie so much fuller.
Yeah.
And they kind of do there. And they kind of need to. Like, the police don't really go through, like, that Paula character doesn't really have any kind of arc. You know what I mean?
No child left behind.
No child left behind.
No child left behind.
But she's just annoying the whole time. She won't give up. I'm like, really? Would you? I think if local governments would just give up after a couple months. They're not going to keep looking for. It's a cold case. Let it go.
Right.
But she doesn't let it go because there's no child left behind.
Yeah, and it is interesting how like big this manhunt gets.
Yeah.
At times, like,
I mean, ninjas.
Yeah, right, ninjas.
Which is really the SWAT team.
SWAT team, right? Which is a SWAT team, even.
Yeah.
Like that's what I mean. It's like they got choppers and SWAT teams and like all this stuff like out in the bush, and it just seems very interesting that.
Yeah.
Like
it's a moviness
right,
here.
And it grows to be that. But
like I said, they probably would have just given up, assumed they were dead and moved on. But
it is what it is.
Which is what they hoped they would do, but they didn't. Right. So, but then I guess their first step back into the real world is they go to one of these huts,
right?
And they find this guy who's like dead, but then they touch him and he's not dead. Kind of like again, if we go back to old movies, it reminded me a little of Death to Stalin, like.
Right.
He's like, he's not dead. He's
not dead. He's dead. Oh, but
I won't forget this.
So you're going to get the doctor then.
Yeah. Well, so Ricky's going to get the doctor then.
Ricky's going to get the doctor.
And so Ricky goes hunting for a doctor while Heck's keeping the dude alive.
It's a big test for Ricky at this point. You know?
Exactly.
I mean, kind of like in this journey for him, you know, he's kind of become the survivalist Ricky. And like, so now.
Does he pass the test though?
Well, I mean, he does, you know.
Except for interpretation.
I mean, if the test is to find the ladies, then
he passed the test.
Because he finds Kahoo, who is a lady.
Yes.
And, you know, he...
Took Ricky a second, but he realizes, I love this woman, I think, with some looks.
Right.
You know, nonverbal, but...
I am in love.
Yeah. Yes. She's kind of funny. Like, I think she makes the most of her scenes, that little actress, the way they wrote her character.
For sure. You know, brings her home, you know, so she can, you know, call somebody to let somebody know to go up to the cabin or whatever.
Right.
And this is where we meet yet another character who reminds me of Korg,
yes.
which is her dad.
Yeah.
Which I'm just like...
Just wanted selfies, bro.
Right. Just want selfies, bro. And like, I don't know what it is, but again, it's just like, is this kind of where you formed Korg out of?
It's Taika's voice. It's just like, this is Taika when he writes himself, I guess.
And it is. I mean, it really is. I mean, the dialogue through the whole movie is kind of that. And you obviously with a writer, director... You kind of get that style.
Yeah, he's still finding his voice.
Right, but I mean, there's so much of it there where it's like, I think Taika, like one of the things that I think I love about him is like how he like it has a line and it has to have a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's like a little over explanation of something. Or,
sure.
You know what I mean? And that's where the comedy is found. You know what I mean? But yeah, again, her dad just reminded me so much of Korg, and I had to write it down. I wrote it down every time. I'm like, why does this guy sound like Korg?
Korg 2. This is Korg 3. Yeah, exactly. And so anyway, he ends up, you know, listening to her sing, and she, you know, he's wooed by her woman magic, and he falls asleep, and is not what he was supposed to do because, you know, he knows that people are going to go save this dead, non-dead diabetic guy.
Yeah.
And so he's got to go warn Heck, but he kind of forgets because he falls asleep, and then, you know, mad race to go save him, and then they kind of get separated because when he goes to finds the non-dead guy, it's swamped with police and stuff, but Heck's not there, so he now has to kind of find out, like, how do I reunite with Heck?
Yeah. This montage is pretty interesting too because
it's really cool.
Kind of like one thing in this stretch of the movie that is interesting to me is time, and I think it's easy to get lost in time here. You know, I know when they get to that first cabin place where they find the wanted poster, it's like they kind of, I think you said they've been gone for 6 weeks at that point.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh crap, really? 6 weeks? And then like when Ricky meets Kahoo, I think there's some sort of like new time thing there, or something where there's like maybe months or something like that at this point that they've been gone.
Yeah.
So you're kind of getting a sense of, you know, how long they've been out there, how much time he's, you know, survived, if you will. And then, you know, you kind of getting these montage sequences, which again, you imagine are also like big swaths of time passing. But, you know, there's some, you know, funny stuff in them. You know, I love the guy who talked about Rambo. That was stuck out to me. Yeah, the news anchor talking to him about like he's Rambo and like, and
it kind of shows. I think
like,
there's
we love freedom here in New Zealand.
Yeah, I think there's some people showing that, like, you know, they're showing that not everybody hates Heck.
Right.
Ricky.
Yeah. They kind of gained that notoriety.
Yeah, especially since they did save that one guy's life, and they're starting to get maybe this little like cult following, basically.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're not just bad guys anymore. Right. So you kind of get you kind of get to learn that, and then, but, you know, quickly they're reunited. And this is where we learn about the knack, which is just being able to do stuff.
Right.
Which I guess is what Heck's deal is.
That's true. But before they meet up though, I love the scene with him where he runs into Paula on either side of
I
the.
have a note for yeah.
That's like I love this scene. I love that scene because it's like where they talk about Terminator. Like I'm more like Terminator than you.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, you're more like Sarah Connor in the first one before she could do chin-ups.
Right.
Like,
but
I love that.
Yeah, I do. And then the scene ends though with Paula basically saying like, "I'll let you off, Ricky, if you tell us where Heck is." And then Ricky has this little quick line like, "You don't trade family," and then
Right.
kind of
There
walks
you go.
off.
Yeah,
and like,
there you go.
All right, Ricky's bought in. And he's just got to find Heck. And I think when he does, it's like the three douches that group we were talking about earlier, those 3 hunters.
Right.
They're kind of they get another run in with them or something. Right. Quick, very soon after that.
That's why they refer to themselves as the Wilder People.
Yes. Based off the book they saw that had wilder beasts in it.
Exactly.
But yeah, and I really like that. The end of that scene, they get the upper hand on those 3 guys again, and they're like, they kind of mention there's just $10,000 reward, and Ricky's just like, tell us when it gets to 20, and then leaves. I'm like, all right, I love that.
In your mind, you kind of have to start wondering, like, where is this going to end?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if this is kind of the point in the movie where you're like, okay, how does this end for them? You know what I mean? And, because winter ends up coming.
Well, I will say one real quick thing to that point, because I think one of the things they have to do is start breaking down that how well they're able to survive.
Sure.
And so when they kill the dog, Zag, because there's this big boar fight.
Yeah.
This huge boar.
Yeah.
That ends up like killing Heck's dog, who I thought was Zach the whole time, but I guess his name was Zag.
Well, yeah, because there's the joke where he's like, you get another one and name it Zig.
Yeah, I know. I guess I got lost in the
Zig
accent.
And Zach?
I guess I got lost in the accent. I don't know, but yeah. So anyway, so I think you got to start breaking down like what's keeping their willingness to be out there.
Yeah.
And so I think that was part one. And then you're right. Then it becomes winter.
Yeah, and it's so yeah. At a point of a movie like this, it's like, okay, well, how does this end?
Yeah.
And you can tell that there's definitely a climax coming, and
war.
Right. And yes, because and it's so great because obviously at this point in the movie, this is where the missing piece of the puzzle comes in. The one that you've been missing this whole time. And that's Rise Darby.
Of course. Rise Darby.
It's Rise Darby.
How could we think we're going to go through this movie without
Rise Darby? The Bushman.
Yeah.
Psycho Sam. It's a bush or a man. Can't tell if it's a bush or a man.
Bushman.
Like, I've never... you just can't.
Like, have you guys heard of the famous Psycho Sam? Like, no? Oh, okay. Well, my name's Sam, so...
You just can't... You can't make a Taika movie like this without Rise Darby.
No.
But why do you think they call him Psycho?
I don't know.
And they put the pots on it.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was funny.
Yeah. Because he's been in the bush, I think, for a long time, and he's lost a couple of nuts and bolts holding his brain together.
He's not a form filler.
He's not a form filler. He's not going to go back to regular life. But he does screw over Heck and Ricky because he charges Ricky's phone, I guess, somehow. And,
4 bars.
Yeah, 4 bars, and they were able to track that, but luckily Psycho Sam has a truck.
Right.
And now we get a high-speed chase.
I think it's called the Crumbly or something like that.
I can't remember.
Yeah,
Tumbly
or something like that.
But now we get a high-speed chase through the bush.
Like, this is when the movie really kind of gets that scale. You know what I mean? It's
give
like
it a little
Thelma
bit of
and
budget.
Louise in here, and it's they're clearly like, how to what do we do? And you can tell that Hector's kind of like, I'm kind of, maybe we should just give up. I'm done. Maybe this isn't a great idea. And Ricky's not having any of it because he says, well, I'm dying in a blaze of glory. And he just punches it and he just goes.
Yeah. They kind of put their relationship through the wash machine real quick here.
Yeah.
And kind of put it on its head because they're in a pretty good place.
Yeah, I think at this point, because there is a scene when they're at Psycho Sam's where they talk about, they break down the situation with his mom, not knowing who she is and everything.
Yeah.
And Hector's like, oh, I'm sure she wanted you. She was just young and she didn't know how to raise you, and all that. And he's like, you're pretty likable.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's funny that they touch on that one thing with foster parents is they can't have kids but can be great parents.
Right.
Where the kids that they're raising have bad parents who could have kids, and that's something that kind of was going through Ricky's mind as Hector set it to ease, as you said.
Yeah.
And then he gave him a little haiku. Ricky gives Heck a little haiku, so they're in a really good place. So of course you have to tear it down.
Right. Exactly. It is just as like when in the first act when you get the high with Bella, and then bam, it's done.
Yes. So then So you put them opposite ends of the spectrum really quick. Where Heck wants to turn it in. This is done. They've been caught. And Ricky's like, no way, we're dying before we go to jail. And so, essentially speed chase,
right?
Helicopters, army.
I was gonna say
tanks,
get
this kid.
This escalated quickly.
Well, crime's not as abundant in New Zealand, Rob, so they take it really seriously.
Apparently.
But it ends up like the car crashes, of course, because Ricky's driving and he's 12.
13.
Sure.
Jeez.
And then as Hector's like turning in, Ricky's just so mad. Like Hector's like Hector's like trying to say I've given up, and Ricky's trying to like make it so he can't give up because he's like, he's molesting me.
Right.
And Paul, I knew it.
Right. But he says we're family.
Yeah.
In that moment he says, we're family.
Yeah, we're family. You can't leave me.
And then he shoots him.
Because Hector leaves him.
Because he leaves him.
He's like, I'm not. He's like, he's gone through so much loss. He's willing to shoot Heck over losing him.
He didn't mean to, though.
No, he got startled.
He got startled. So.
Shoots him right in the butt.
Right. Which is
something bit me. Is what Heck needed to say.
That is true. But this is also like where that hunter guy comes back into it because he's gonna get the reward. He's gonna go shoot him, but then Korg won.
Yeah, the second cop.
Right, I think his name's Andy. Let's be fair to Andy. I'm pretty sure that's his name. I wrote it down.
Just a character,
right? But he tackles him obviously to save him. And
gunshot goes off, scares Ricky. Ricky shoots Heck in the butt.
Exactly.
Chase over. They're captured.
No child left behind.
They got him.
No child left behind. But I love this scene too because also Andy Korg one, kind of gives Paula a hard time because she's like, book him or whatever, and he's like, that's an American thing. Yeah. You're not a cop. Yeah. And so it's kind of just like, what have we been doing this whole time?
Right. Exactly.
So
why are we doing this?
Right. So yeah, it's again kind of a little funny thing. Again, that little arc that you get with these side characters. I think there's even one you can argue with Andy. From, the first scene to this scene with him and Paula.
We've been chasing a kid this whole time. We're basically breaking up a little family.
Right.
At this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And just, their relationship with one another.
Yeah.
Mutual respect or lack thereof, I should say.
Yeah. So I guess then after a little, so the movie kind of wraps up quick here from this point.
Yeah.
There's a quick little montagey trial where we end up seeing that Ricky goes to live with Kahu and her dad.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah. He seems happy. I mean, he's definitely in the vicinity of the ladies now.
Yes.
So it's like, it's going to turn into a Brady Bunch situation.
Oh boy.
They're going to share the attic. That's what it's going to be.
And then I guess Heck ended up having to go to jail.
He did go to jail.
He didn't do anything wrong.
Right? So that is weird. I'm like, okay. Hopefully
well, there's no way to prove it.
Child molestation, because I mean.
Well, I mean, it does prove that he was right for being on the run this whole time, because he's like, they're not going to believe us. We have to run, and he was right.
Right.
So he went to jail.
They didn't believe him.
And then I guess he goes to a retirement home
or a halfway house.
Halfway house.
Yeah, and Ricky tracks him down, and he tells him I just got carried away at being an outlaw.
He's a gangster.
He's a gangster. I'm better at being a gangster. You're not a gangster. Yeah. So, but Ricky wants him to come and live on the farm and help out. And
they're gonna hunt down this extinct bird that they saw in the bush. So
right.
Stuff that they want to do together, and
the adventure's not over.
Exactly.
The adventure's not over, and then. Again, kind of going back to this, like through thread line, Hector does a haiku, and it was the best.
Yeah,
it was the best,
and that's a lot for Hector to be able to say it was the best is a lot. It takes a lot.
So. I agree. And I think at that moment, and it's like they become family. Ricky kind of tells him, you got to let me call you uncle.
Yep.
Okay. and Hector says you can't shoot me, which is fair.
Deal.
Which is fair.
Yeah, I think, and the movie kind of wraps up there. I guess there's one more shot with like Ricky and Heck going to go into the bush together, and they're gonna go do these things together, and it's gonna work out. Like they're a pair now. They're inseparable.
Yeah, And so it's I think it's a journey earned in that
Yeah.
way. You know what I mean? And I think there's a lot of
Now I wonder if that would happen in real life. Like you feel like there would be like Hector would not be allowed within 1,000 feet of Ricky ever again.
I guess it would depend
On what happened,
the
why he went to
charges
jail
were, right?
for a
Exactly
year.
what the exact charges were.
But
So I
yeah,
guess they get
either
away with
way,
ambiguity. It's like,
yeah.
he's just going to
I'm
jail.
not going to explain
Okay,
this.
right?
Yeah. But yeah, so again, like I said, I kind of really like this movie. And well, one thing we talked about in the before section was just like classic Taika. So as we kind of wrap up the combos with answering a couple questions, let me pose this little side question. Just like we're big fans of Taika. I think controlled Taika's great, and most of the time, 90% of the time, he's controlled. I think Thor 4 is a little bit of an
Yeah,
exception.
it's the exception.
Did you find this to be, when I say classic Taika, I'm not saying you think this movie is necessarily a classic, but like in his wheelhouse, like how I had described it?
Definitely. It's interesting. I actually wrote this down in my notes at one point, and I think you can make an argument for a lot of directors who go on to do big things and who have a hit movie and then they get a budget and then they get freedom and then they can just do whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
And there's definitely some people that can make an argument against that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Obviously Taika's gotten Marvel money now,
Right?
So that's where we get into Marvel or to Thor: Love and Thunder, where it's like, maybe
Right.
you should have reined this in a little bit. But a director that I kind of wrote that I saw I felt actually some visual elements, similarities in this movie at times, to that I also love is Wes Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple,
couple shots.
There's definitely some shots in this movie that you can tell that
I think when
when
Hector and Ricky are first reunited, when they get separated in the bush, I kind of feel like a very Wes Anderson the way they see each other. And
sure, like some of the
pan
quick
up
pans,
really quick,
yeah. And even there's like a panning montage
Right.
when winter comes and
Yep.
stuff like that. That felt very Wes Anderson the way that was framed. But he's another director that I think some people might argue that because he kind of became more popular, he got a bigger budget and all bigger budgets, and all these things, that he's kind of he's not reined in anymore in some regards. And there's some people that feel that that's not
all
good, and there's some
style.
and whatever, right? Exactly, it becomes more of a style than anything else. And I think I can see where people would come from. I see where people are coming from. Excuse me. With somebody like Wes Anderson, and I think I could see that with Taika as well. So for me, yeah, I think there's definitely an argument to be made that when you get, sometimes you need those restraints.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do. Sometimes you need to tell somebody to tell you, I don't know, this may not be the greatest
Smaller
thing
can
in the
sometimes
world,
be better.
Right, exactly. But that's not to take away from the work,
Right.
necessarily. So in Taika's case, yeah, I think Taika is a guy who can do a lot with a little, and he can do a lot with a lot.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so that again, that can be good or bad, but I do think that there is something to be said about a director who has to really put their resources to the test.
Yeah, I just think I think in a movie like this, you see a director as they're finding their real style, they have to be so smart with it because they're on a budget,
Right.
that only the best ideas make it through, and
Yeah.
I just think it helps the overall movie. All right, that's question 1. You answered it perfectly. Question 2, which we posed at the beginning of this little combo here. This blood is thicker than water type deal here. The family you choose, the family you make. Where do you fall on all that?
Like I said, from my own personal experience, I've moved around a bit, had and been forced to kind of, make family where I go. So from a personal standpoint,
You've been a wildebeest.
I have lived the life of a wilder person.
Yeah, just in downtown.
Yeah, I mean So I definitely think that family can definitely be the people that you choose. And it's funny because blood is thicker than water is
Right.
like one of the most misquoted quotes ever.
Yep.
Because it's that most people think that means that like the quote means familial blood is thicker than water, when that's actually not true.
The opposite.
It's the opposite. That, from my understanding, the quote is actually about the blood on a battlefield. The people, like the people that you shed blood with on a battlefield, is thicker
the water of like your womb,
water
or
of the womb, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is like your family's,
right? So it's funny how that has kind of taken a reverse meaning in modern times. But yeah, I mean, I'm 100% a believer of the family of the people that you choose. I mean, hell, you're my family.
Absolutely.
Right here
That's
on this
why we're
podcast.
doing this podcast
exactly.
together.
So yeah, I mean, for me, 100% firm, full believer. Yeah, family is the people that you choose.
And Hector has been chosen by Ricky, and they're a great pairing, and the movie shows that. All right, question 3, which is how we have to end this podcast, or this at least this part of the conversation. Thinking about Hunt for the Wilderpeople, how'd you like the movie, and would you recommend it to someone else?
Well, this, I have to give everybody the shock ending, right?
Absolutely.
This is the M. Night Shyamalan twist ending. I loved it.
Oh, great.
Nobody saw that coming.
Yeah.
I guarantee it. Not one of you saw that coming. No. I love the movie. How could I not? Like I said, Julian Dennison and Sam Neill's chemistry is off the charts. And MVP, low-key MVP is Bella, the actress who plays Bella. I don't have her name written down.
I do. Her name is, it's like Rima Wiata. It's tough to say, but
it's very New Zealand.
I hope I crushed it for her.
But whether you crushed her name or not, she crushed it in this movie, and so I don't think this movie works without her.
Right.
But like I said, in the end, the Julian Dennison, Ricky, Hector relationship really was just magical. I think every step of their basically almost kind of like a road trip movie.
Yeah,
in a way,
like it's kind of a movie.
Right, it's a road trip movie without a car until the end. It fires on all cylinders. I agree. I think this is some of Taika at his best. I think again working with not a lot, but making so much out of it. I would absolutely recommend this movie to anybody. I know 2 people right off the top of my head that I would totally recommend this movie to. So yeah, I'm so glad I have. This might close the loop for Taika for me. I may have seen everything now, except I don't know if I watched his newest movie, which is the soccer movie.
Oh, true. Did he direct that though?
I thought he did. But that's one that I have not seen yet.
Yeah.
Some next.
We're pretty close, I think, to seeing pretty much all of his stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, and so which is it's interesting going back to our conversation earlier about the question of having too much, becoming too much. That struck me as a movie of him kind of going back to his roots, especially now after seeing Hunt for the Wilderpeople.
Right.
From the trailer, that could be kind of a movie that gets back to core Taika. So now I'm actually kind of pumped to actually go see that movie now because I think it could really be good.
I don't disagree. Like I said, obviously I recommended this movie, so I think it was really good. I'm sorry, I was just looking up to see some other stuff that he directed if we had missed anything. Yeah, Next Goal Wins. He did direct that.
Next Goal Wins. Okay.
Yeah, he did direct that.
Yeah, I thought he did.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, I mean, I've said I think this is like classic Taika. I think this is when he's at his best. And Julian Dennison, I think, is amazing in this movie. I wish that I saw him in more stuff.
Yeah.
I know he's in a new upcoming movie, which is cool.
He's in that Y2K movie that comes out.
Yeah. So I'm excited. I'm going to watch him in that because I think he's great.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Sam Neill, great.
Obviously great.
Very Ramsey type character. That
I was going to say this is just what he does now.
Yeah,
he just lives in New Zealand and plays this part over and over and over again. But Rams made my top 5 last year.
Yeah.
So you know what? We'll see where Hunt of the Wilderpeople ends up this year.
Yeah.
Well, now that we've pretty much, I think, done being wooed by Taika, as we always are.
Yes, but can we do it again at some time?
I'm sure we will. Sure we will. But let's see. Have we been wooed by anything else lately? Ray, what have you been watching?
I've been wooed. I was wooed by James Gunn a little bit. I watched and finished Creature Commandos.
I got one episode.
All right, so I will not be too spoilery, but
it shouldn't be anyway, just in case anybody who
hasn't watched it yet. No, I just want to make people watch it. But I would say at the beginning I was a little worried. It feels very Suicide Squad-y. It feels like James Gunn is definitely working in his box. It's a band of misfits that are going to grow together, and
Yeah.
that's what Guardians of the Galaxy was, and that's
Yep.
what Peacemaker is, and that's what Suicide Squad is. So definitely feels like it's inside his box, but I still think he does good enough job of connecting you to characters that by the end you're like, all right, I'm on board with this.
Yeah.
And I feel like I was pretty much there with that at the end.
Yeah, even with only one episode left, I can kind of agree with that. Like, I don't know if it ever really has gotten out of the Suicide Squad feel for me, but I do like the individual characters.
And it is Suicide Squad. It's this new DCU Suicide Squad.
Which this is what they're doing. It's fine.
It feels So I think it's allowed to feel like that, but like in regards to something new, I know what you mean.
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like if they do, I know there's rumbles of it going live action.
Well, supposedly the rules in James Gunn's DCU is anybody in animation can appear in live action and be played by the same actor.
So we'll see. I mean, so I'll be interested to see how that translates if that does happen.
There'd be some like I think the Frankenstein and Mrs. Frankenstein stuff would be really fun.
Really
live
fun.
action,
really
like
fun.
That is a really cool dynamic.
And they got Alan Tudyk, which for Dr. Phosphorus.
They got him like 10 roles,
right? Which I mean, shooting for the just you're getting your A squad out there for
DC
that.
is definitely getting their fill of Alan Tudyk. And then I guess the other tent pole that I dipped my head into was did I say tent pole? Because I
was gonna say I don't know what you're going for somewhere, and then you pulled
tent
one
pole,
out, maybe multiple words.
The other tent pole that I dipped my head into was Star Wars again, and I watched Skeleton Crew. Finished that up on Disney Plus.
I heard good things.
Yeah, I liked it. I think it was fun for what it was going for. It is like a kid show. It's got like a Goonies-ish type feel to it.
I love that.
Yeah, I think it was really fun. I think the last episode is a bit of a womp womp kind of episode. It's kind of good. The episode itself is all right.
Right.
It's just like it's really weird ending. It seems like they want a season 2, but like also like didn't really do anything to set up a season 2. Like,
interesting.
I don't know, but overall, still have to give it kind of high marks. I think Star Wars TV's kind of been low recently,
except for
other than Andor.
Except for Andor.
So this might be in second place for me.
That's high praise.
But yeah, that's been me. What about you? What have you been watching?
So let's see. I watched a new series. I guess it is going to be a multi-season. At first, I thought it was only going to be a mini series, but I guess it is going to have multiple seasons, and that is Teacup on Peacock. It's like a horror series.
Okay, I'm not sure about this.
Yeah, so it's about like this kind of like small rural area, multiple farms, and they come to realize that they are trapped inside of like a force field.
Okay.
And they don't know how to get out. But then they ultimately realize that there's like some kind of possessing element, if you will, that's like taking over people, and there's something going on between these. I'm trying not to give too much away. That kind of is connected to an overarching story. So it feels very contained because again, it's like just
trapped in a teacup,
right? More or less, but it's like just a couple of 3 or 4 farms that are kind of drawn into this, but there seems to be like a larger, global, maybe more global story going on overall. It was pretty cool though. Like it was, there was some Scott Speedman was in it, which I don't know if you're familiar with Scott Speedman. He was, I always remembered him from the Underworld films.
Yeah, I didn't watch all those. I watched the first one great, and then never really came back to it.
Yeah, but for me, he was kind of playing a little against type a little bit because I always remembered him kind of being like a heartthrobby kind of guy back in the Underworld
this one he
days.
played a real Ugg.
Not necessarily Ugg, but he was definitely like kind of a goob. Yeah. So I was like
not an Ugg, but a goob.
Not an Ugg, but a goob. So he went for the goob. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I'm kind of interested in what they do in a second season.
Kind of has like a Fallout feel to me a little bit.
A little bit.
They were in those silos or whatever.
Yeah, but there is a guy in a gas mask, so I think that that plays into it. But yeah, the way they ended it, I thought was pretty interesting. They took a couple of big swings at the end, which I thought were interesting. That I think could lead to a second season. It's technically a horror series, but I think you could get behind it if you decided to give it a try.
I might sip out of that teacup. I'm not so sure.
Well, you might enjoy it. You might not. It might be a little bitter for you.
Little sugar never hurt anything.
Let's see. The other thing that I watched was Watchers. Watch. Is it?
Are you asking me? I'm not sure.
Well, it's Oh crap! I am going to absolutely 100% butcher her name, but it is M. Night Shyamalan's daughter.
That's what people call her in Hollywood.
I mean, it is, but like again, oh, there is Ishana Night Shyamalan. I wanted to make sure I said it correctly. Ishana Hana Night Shyamalan. There we go. I hope that is
not going to work here anymore if you don't like that.
I'm hopeful that is correct. I apologize if it's not, but so I watched this movie. It has Dakota Fanning in it, which is interesting because you feel like you see Elle everywhere now.
Yeah.
Dakota not as much. And I don't know if you ever saw the trailers for this movie, but it's like takes place in Ireland, and it's about a girl who like ends up lost in the woods, where she ends up discovering this kind of like house with like the big window, like one-way mirror or whatever.
This actually looked kind of intense.
It is. I mean, it's not. It got terribly panned. It did. And
the trailer was good.
And you know what? I'm gonna stick up for a little bit. Like, I don't think it was as bad as everybody made it out to be. I liked the story because it felt a bit fairy tale, kind of like in the vein of a Guillermo del Toro.
Okay.
So I think I could see why some people may not have been super into it, but I do think it's a situation where if you kind of like that fare, you might be drawn into it. I think there are some interesting story elements to it, and like I said, some kind of supernatural elements that I thought worked really well, and stuff like that.
Mrs. Night Shyamalan think she has to like have a twist ending? Is that
kind of
Hereditary?
I mean, it is, but not to the degree of her father. I'll say that. Like I'm not saying there's no twist at the end, but it's not to the the complete degree where you're basically turning the whole movie upside down.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's nothing like that. And it was on a side note, I know there's like I saw an article recently about this movie and some other projects, just about the whole day of like nepotism.
Never hurt anybody.
All these industry kids who are, kind of just being handed, mounds of cash to make their movie. And this movie was kind of used as one of the poster children of that. And I thought it was a little bit unfair. I'm going to defend her here. I thought it was a little unfair.
Sounds like she needs it. That's good.
I felt like she did a decent job with the movie. Especially for a first feature. Sure, you can make the argument that maybe she got too much money to make it or whatever, but it is what it is, and I think she made a decent movie.
So you want people to go check it out?
Yeah, I mean, I understand if you don't like it, but and I'm not going to say I loved it, but it was definitely better than I expected going in.
All right, Rob, we are now officially done with Hunt for the Wilderpeople, and it would be wild if people by the end of this podcast didn't like the podcast, subscribe to the podcast. Remember that they can contact this podcast multiple ways. They can write us an email at carrayrub@gmail.com. If they leave us a 5-star review, we'll read anything they say someday.
Yeah.
Live on air.
Can I boo now?
And they can reach us at Blue Sky at Car Ray Rob. Okay, now
now I can boo. No, I'm kidding. That was great. If there is a comment section on whatever platform you are on, by all means, leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought of Hunt for the Wilderpeople. Also, what is your favorite Taika movie? Is one of these early ones? Is it a later one? We want to know about it. We will be back next week.
Yes.
Next week with a new episode of Hello Movies, My Old Friend. It will be the first episode for 2025. We are very excited. We aren't going back as far as we did for December's episode. This one we are going to go back to the 2001 French film Brotherhood of the Wolf.
Only 23 years back.
Only 23 years. Just what's 23 years between friends? It is directed by Christophe Gans and stars Samuel Le Bihan, Mark Dacascos, Emile Decane, Monica Bellucci, and Vincent Cassel.
Sure.
We saw the movie in the theater, I believe, right?
Yes, and I'm pretty sure... Oh, man, I don't want to take all the thunder from the podcast, but I'm pretty sure it was the first movie I ever saw in theaters that was subtitled.
Interesting. All right. Well, that's one is we have not seen it in a long time. We cannot remember... somewhat liking it.
Yeah.
We'll have to see if it holds up. But then we will also be back in 2 weeks with our February episodes of Say Hello to My Little Film. The first one will be mine.
Yep.
So you're not going to want to miss that.
Ready.
I think I've got a great one picked out for Ray. But until then, this is Car Ray Rob.
Where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob. And remember, be defined by the films you love, not the ones you hate.
Hey there, it'll be just a little while till Ray and Rob spit their spittle. Come on, check out of the hospital. So grab some of your best peanut brittle. This will be a darn good transmittal. And say hello to my little film.
All right, everyone. I want to give you a little sneak peek of my February episode of Say Hello to My Little Film. I'm going to be showing One from the Heart. It is a 1982 musical by Francis Ford Coppola. You heard that right. Francis Ford Coppola did a musical. It stars Frederick Forrest, Terry Garr, Raul Julia, Natasha Kinski. It is a really great movie that I enjoy. It's out of Francis Ford Coppola's wheelhouse, and it is also actually out of Ray's wheelhouse. So I think it's going to be a great episode. You're not going to want to miss it. Check it out before then, and we will see you on the next episode.